everyone. I'm here with a friend of mine, Rosemary. And Rosemary is my special guest today. Not only is Rosemary an extraordinary person, but she's also a life coach.
Thank you.
So, Rosemary, let's get into it. Can you explain to everyone what a life coach is and what you do for people?
Yeah, of course. So life coaching can be described a lot of different ways, but from my education and my learning and what I do as a life coach is, how what I described it a year ago would have probably been different than now. I would describe what I do as really just guiding people through their own journey. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to fix anyone into being somebody else. Really, you're just hearing out their story and helping shower them with encouragement, pretty much, if that makes sense. I use a lot of positive psychology and help to transform their perspective into a more positive perspective to help shift their reality so that they can make a better next choice, maybe a better outlook of what they may be perceiving versus what might be in reality happening around them. So really helping them just shift different things around to be their highest, best self they can possibly be.
Okay. So when people come to you, what is like the main thing that they're looking to change about their life?
Everyone's a little different, but the main thing I hear from a lot of people is that they just want to be better. They don't like something they're doing in their everyday cycle. They feel the cycle is usually what's happening is usually you feel yourself repeating kind of the same thing, right? Mm. I feel like life's supposed to be more than this, or maybe somebody's stuck in a rut. They can't figure out how to get out of it. Some people went through a drastic change, say a divorce, a death of somebody, loss of job, right? I help coach people through that as well. Where do I go from here, right? I don't know what to do. Anything where somebody's pretty much feeling at a loss is usually when they end up needing to seek help, is when you realize, oh my gosh, I need help with this. It could be any avenue of life, really.
Okay. And how long have you been doing this?
I've been a certified life coach for 2 years now, but I was a cosmetologist for 12 years where I helped guide people, which I didn't realize I was kind of coaching them, which is, kind of one of those avenues. But I officially started coaching about 2.5 years ago.
Okay. So tell me how you got started on your health journey.
So my health journey that led me into coaching and kind of into the wellness was actually, it was really weird. I was one of the youngest people in my town to need their gallbladder out. Really? At that time, it was an interesting thing. I didn't know what was going on. I was 15. Nobody in my family had surgery like that.
That can be very traumatic at a young age, too.
Yes, and I didn't really know what was going on. I had some gut issues every time I ate fats, and we ended up figuring out I needed my gallbladder out. So that was the start of it. After that, I thought it would be fixed. The doctors tell you it's going to be fixed. It was not. I was the other 50% where, my gut couldn't figure it out, I guess. Now I have a little more education on that, but then I did not. I didn't know what was going on. So from age 15 to now, I've had to go through different avenues of life trying to figure out what did and didn't give me stomach aches so I could have a normal quality of life, if that makes sense. Because the doctors wanted to keep giving me pills that were just kind of making my insides weird. And I was like, this isn't working. So I had to go on my own kind of health avenue and do it myself because it seemed like, no matter what somebody was trying to help me with, it didn't seem to work with what was happening with my body specifically. So I just started seeing what was making my stomach hurt, what wasn't making my stomach hurt, which doesn't take a day. It takes a few months of being a kid, right? And then you realize it, and then another month, and then another year happens. But in those years and months, from 15 on, I endured some other health things, such as finding out I have a blood clotting disorder that runs in our family. I found that out a scary way, almost losing my life.
Wow.
Blood clots filled my lungs. I didn't know why. I thought I was doing everything right. Again, I was on this health journey. I didn't know what was happening. Then I almost lost my life. I was like, oh, what's happening? So then I awakened to a new spectrum of health and wellness. I said, everyone's trying to tell me to exercise and tell me to do this and take these pills, and this is going to help you be healthier and stop drinking, go donate plasma, right? Do all this stuff and you're going to be a healthy person. So I started listening to everyone around me, of course, right? Oh, I'll do all this stuff. Again, not knowing I had a blood clotting disorder yet, the plasma donation was depleting my blood more. So that protein C deficiency was now 0 instead of 40%. And I didn't know that until I actually moved to South Carolina. So again, some of my health journey stuff didn't appear until now. I mean, this just happened a couple months ago. I found that out.
Wow.
The reasoning my blood clots even happened. Obviously, I have this clotting disorder, but I sit all the time. What about the years before that? I had so many inner questions, of course, a lot of people would. So that was another kick in the butt for my health journey. So I had this stomach issue still, couldn't figure it out. I had this blood clotting thing. I also kept needing this surgery on my foot that they couldn't figure out. I just had a bunch of weird things that they put me on blood clotting medication. The medication they put me on, my body rejected. They put me on another one. My body rejected that one. And by reject, I don't mean I just got some hives. It actually started shutting down my muscular and skeletal system. Wow. I had all 10 of the worst allergic reactions to it, and I'm not, quote unquote, allergic to anything except snuggle fabric softeners from my knowings. So again, outside of this, I can eat, I can drink, I can take anything. I've never had issues my whole life. They gave me this medication. And again, I was gung-ho for it. I saved my life, right? Somebody saved me. That's your go-to. Somebody saved me. Especially when you have about 5 minutes of life left. Please save my life. So I'm taking this medication, continuous taking it for about 5 months. And the right side of my muscles, just one day I went to get out of the car, we were going to eat, and they stopped working and were just shooting pain through my body. And it was only my right rib cage. So again, didn't make any sense. All of a sudden, it was shooting pain, almost like a kidney infection, but in the front, like by my lung. Again, they couldn't figure it out. It wasn't my muscles. I went in, couldn't figure it out. Lots of blood tests. They thought maybe stage 3 Lyme's disease, and it was starting to eat away at my cartilage in my body. They couldn't figure out why my hands felt like they were detaching from me. All, again, very strange symptoms. Again, none of these body parts were connected to the correct nervous systems for it to make sense. The doctors were extremely confused. I, again, was left with no answers again. Still on the medication because I was, again, not aware of it. That 2 years later, when I had my second reconstructive foot surgery, because the first foot surgery I had, they put the screw in my foot wrong 8 years before, and it was permanently breaking my foot now.
Wow.
They couldn't get the screw out. It went into a more deeper surgery. That's when I found out I was allergic to the medication. It was 2.5 years later. It was eating the cartilage in my body, and I had to go off the medication to have the surgery because you could bleed out, right? So I went off of it. The fatigue went away. My hands started feeling normal again. Stuff started being clearer in my eyes and my vision, and I was just like, wow, I think this medication is causing some of these symptoms. So I had this shut down nervous system, this weird rib thing, a permanently broken foot, still didn't have really answers to the blood clotting. I still had a gut issue. Couldn't figure any of it out. Again, still doing my health and wellness stuff, trying to wean things out, figure stuff out as people went and would educate me on things. Again, nothing for me seemed to be working. Very confused. Doctors would call me the mystery project in our town. They couldn't figure out, what was happening. They put me on doxycycline for 3 months because I thought I had Lyme's disease. It was a false positive. They put me on it for no reason and hindered the cartilage that was getting eaten in my body. It actually worsened it. Long story short, after that, I ended up taking, when we moved here, I got more into, I have no choice now. I now can't stand. My lower back hurts to the point where I can't walk after work. I was a hairstylist. I can barely function. I had a 3-year-old. I was like, I'm doing everything I think I'm supposed to do. I go to the chiropractor. I'm drinking my water. I'm trying to work out, but my back hurts too much now. My foot's got this thing. My insides are weird. I can't really eat because it gives me a stomach ache. I just had all this stuff, and I felt very lost. I felt very confused. At that same time, my dad had been passing away from cancer, and he had some addiction issues going on that I also had to research and figure out at the same time, figuring my health stuff out. And I just kept researching, why would this happen to my body versus what is happening? I already know what's happening, right? So then I started looking at everything I was eating and intaking, because if that medication a doctor was telling me was the safest, what else is being told is safe that I'm eating that might not be right for my specific body? What am I putting in my body that's causing my stomach issues now? So that's kind of what actually opened up, was me almost dying from my blood clotting disorder.
So that was a turning point for you.
So when I almost died, I woke up and said, hey, you have a choice. You can figure your life out and live, actually, or you can survive. And I understood what people meant when they said that at that point was, do you want to live or do you just want to survive? And I said, I have only been surviving. At that point, my brain realized that. And my turning point was, I almost died. I had to figure out why I was almost dying, because nobody could. And then figure out and break down every single thing I was putting into my body and which thing was causing each thing in my body and how I could switch it now. What could I do to eliminate, switch, or replace those things with something that might be healthier or better, or maybe not eat the cartilage of my body? What's a little better than that? And I kind of went up from there.
So it sounds like from age 15, you just had so many people throwing so many different things at you. And when you're 15, you're probably still trying to be a kid or a teenager on top of everything else. So you're taking everybody's advice, trying everything. And, sadly, when you're hurting or having issues, the first thing you want to do is go talk to a doctor because they fix people. At least that's the assumption.
Yep.
So it took how many years, do you think, until that turning point where you said, hey, I need to do something different?
Well, from age 15 to 2020.
Okay.
And I'm going to be 33.
And then around 2020, that's when you said, hey, I need to focus on some trial and error, see what's working, what's helping. It sounds like that one medication I gave you actually wasn't the cure or the fix. It was part of the problem.
Yes. And that's when I started realizing. Also, I realized when I went in for my back, they said nothing was wrong with me, and they wanted to solder off the ends of my nerves. So I just couldn't feel the inflammation. And that, again, was a turning point. And I said, no, something's wrong. I needed a solution because, again, I was just surviving. So, I was like, no, I can't. I couldn't walk. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't play softball then because my hands felt like they're detaching. I really couldn't do any of the things I love doing anymore. So I only had a choice, was to let this thing, whatever it was, take over me or find a different answer. Like there had to be a different answer.
And that's a turning point where a lot of people, they just fall into a deep depression and it's just a downward spiral from there until they eventually get to the point that they can't do anything or maybe they die. And that's when you had that wake-up call.
Yeah, really. And that wake-up call was funny because that was the time I thought I was doing my best. That's when I thought I was doing everything. Like, I'm going to cut out alcohol. I'm going to do this. But I was really, vitamin K thickens the blood. Greens, too many of them, certain leafy greens thicken the blood. Like all these things were actually like killing me because I just didn't know what I was doing. I had no background and I was just listening to these random people.
Hey, take this. Fix that.
Go see a new doctor. Here's a friend, right? Oh, I take this. Oh, do this. Oh, my doctor told me this. And, I was just, again, what most people do, right? You just do what you think you're supposed to do. And then I felt like at a loss. I said, none of this is working. None of this, not one of it. help me, somebody. But nobody was. So I said, I got to help me. Who's going to advocate for me? Well, me. Well, who's going to save me? Me.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to go to at the end of the day.
Yeah, you have all the skin in the game at that point.
And I did have the education because I knew what not to do.
Yeah. So what were the first things that you decided to cut out of your life, and why?
So the very first thing was alcohol. I grew up in Wisconsin, where it's very prominent and normal to drink. It's not odd to drink at even a child's birthday party. You would, all the adults would have beverages. It was just a normal thing. You have a cookout, you would drink. People would come over, you drink. People came over for game night, you drink. It was just everything you did, you drink. So that was much harder because we grew up in a drinking environment. So one of the first things was we knew we had to cut out alcohol to have control of our body and actually know what my, I guess, quote unquote, thickness of my blood was, because we know alcohol thins the blood as well. So I needed to feel as well. And I was aware of that. Said, I need to be me. So first I cut out alcohol. And at that same time, it took my husband a couple months to cut it out. But that same week I detoxed from red meat, sugar right away, and it was mostly added sugars, but at first I just cut out all sugar for about 3 months. And caffeine, the things, and dyes. So it was just like red dyes, any dyes, additives, just that bad stuff. I made homemade, everything was just like vegetables pretty much. And to get some sugars, of course, we did grains. We did like just
fruits,
rice.
maybe.
Yeah. I still love potatoes. I love potatoes. I made a potato song. It's going to be famous someday.
Oh, okay.
You want to hear it quick?
Sure, let's do it.
You got to do the beat. Ready? I love you, do, 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 and I love potato too. Do, 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 do. And then you add to it. Ready? I love blue, do, 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 and I love potato too. Do, 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 do. And then you just keep adding to it.
All the foods you like?
Yep. Well, we just added anyone in our family. So it'd just be like, and then you'd rhyme something with it, and then you go back to potato.
I'm not the best at that. I'd probably go straight to potato.
But yeah,
That's awesome.
we had to cut it out because, again, some people have a choice. I didn't have a choice. It was like, you're going to eat like this, and obviously gaining weight, I know is going to make my back worse. And if they can't figure out what's wrong with my back, I know at first I need to lose weight to figure, I just knew I needed a starting point to start feeling versus numbing.
Yeah.
Because I knew, again, what not to do. Don't numb it. Got it. That's not going to work. I know alcohol numbs. The doctor wanted to numb my spine off. So I know, okay, that's not the answer, because I need to feel to know what's occurring. If I can't feel it, I can't fix it. It's plain and simple. Like, if I don't know what's there, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to wean the things out that were possibly blocking my body from being its full self, from feeling. I also went off birth control. As a woman, I'm sure a lot of women know, it is controlling more than we think it is. And I didn't find that out until I went off of it, whether it be hormonal or not. It took 2 years for me to feel normal. And I was acknowledging it as it was detoxing out of me, which was the craziest part of it. I'd be like, wow, my right eye stopped twitching.
Yeah.
Or, whoa, I didn't get annoyed all week.
Yeah.
Just little things. And that was a really big thing to help wean things out. So those were the main things. I had to get rid of things that I knew were possibly controlling what I should be feeling or thinking or perceiving, and altering it to something else.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the body can run itself. You just have to give it the proper fuel.
Yep, it is a self-sufficient organism that is healing and cleaning and redoing and talking and feeling and communicating with everything and trying to tell us stuff.
Yeah, and in talking to my dad, he gave me this analogy that, your body needs the right fuel to run right. You can run a car off of mineral spirits, but it's not going to run right. You can keep putting additives in to try to make it run better, but unless you're running on gasoline, which is what that engine needs, it's never going to run right. And a lot of the foods that we take in, particularly the sugars, the grains, is not the fuel that we need.
Yeah, it's funny because going into the sugars and grains, which all convert into sugar, whatever.
It's all glucose at the end of the day.
Like it's so silly. The funny part of that is I actually found out they were bad when I was 15.
Really?
Because they kept telling me to up my grain for my stomach ache. They said, eat more wheat, eat more whole wheat, eat more whole grains, eat more whole wheat.
No bacon and eggs, just eat cereal for breakfast?
Just eat this and eat oats and eat this. And they're trying to tell me to eat all this stuff that I didn't. I was like, okay, but it didn't matter. Again, what I ate in the morning, I kept getting a dang stomach ache. I was like, oh, no, that made it worse, And I looked to my dad. I was like, Dad, that made my belly burn, And I actually took it as a blessing as I'm older now because it was talking to me. It was that moment set me up to have a better, healthier lifestyle because, I don't have a choice. If I eat it, I can't go hang out with you. I'm not going to be in the same room as you. So it just couldn't occur. I had no choice but to eat something better or just fast.
Yeah.
So I also learned about fasting, which, again, I didn't know I was educating myself on at the time. But I learned grains and such, as much as they wanted me to feed them, weren't good for me. And when I had my first kid, I also learned it. For WIC, they give you cereal for kids. And they're like, oh, if your kid eats a lot, just put some cereal in with the formula. Well, guess who else has
the stomach issues? Your kid.
My firstborn. The only kid I fed that to, and I didn't figure my gallbladder stuff out yet. So I was probably taking that stuff and feeding him that, and he was getting all of this just stuff put into his body that he didn't need.
Yeah.
And that's when I found out just, oh my gosh, he's got the same issues. He's also got the dairy issue, but the second kid, I didn't do the same. I had started switching. So I can see it in my kids as well with the grains. He's also got he gains weight a little bit easier. He likes grains. All that sugar, that storage, that our body goes into that mode where we think we're storing for the winter. Yeah. Well, we're not. We don't need it all. That's why they gave us those grains, was for the poor and the winters and up north, actually, to keep us warm in winter, to pack away some fat cells so that we could stay warm through the cold seasons. Well, most of us have heat or a blanket or something. Yeah, so we don't need to pack on an inch of fat insulation on our body in the winter.
Yeah, we're not bears.
Exactly. So that's actually where that education came from, was like the milk and the dairy and the grains and, ooh, you need these things, was actually to put us into our survival mode, to pack it away. So when we eat those things, our body thinks survival, converts it to sugar, and we pack it into our fat cells, we pack it away.
Yeah.
How much do you need to pack away? Probably none. Unless you're planning on going for like a couple month retreat of not eating, I don't think we need to pack away that much extra.
Yeah, unless you're going through like the Appalachian Trail. You need it as a reserve,
Exactly. We're not bears. We're not hibernating.
We don't hibernate. You know, we eat 2 or 3 meals a day.
And even if you don't, you have enough storage again. You can eat 1 meal a day and be fine. We don't even need all that. So it's just funny. Education versus reality, and then trial and error, how it all aligns. And then you start reading some older books versus newer, and it makes more sense usually, because a lot of people from a long time ago didn't eat those things that they switched in the 90s.
Yeah, it's like beef tallow. We got away from beef tallow, or just cooking grease, cooking from bacon, from beef. And now they're starting to say, hey, all these seed oils and peanut oil, all that stuff is terrible for you. It's funny. My great-grandmother, my parents told me this, and my great-grandmother, all she used was animal fat to cook, lard, basically. You didn't see all the issues that you have nowadays. So it's amazing how a lot of the old practices stand true.
And the other crazy part is that the animals back then weren't eating all the additives. So it's just my health and environment class really breaks it down to the minuscule of your imprint on Earth, right? So, one breaking down to the other. So what they were eating back then isn't what we're eating now. So what we're eating from them now isn't what they were eating then. So we're not getting the same minerals and stuff as we used to either.
Yeah, and that goes down to crops too. If farmers don't go back and replenish the nutrients in the land, now everything that the cow's eating, the grass isn't as fertile and nutritious.
And it just dies off, and that's what we saw. Was it in Georgia? I think that happened too. They have a whole dead area where they didn't rotate their crops for a season, and it will deplete all the nutrients, and there is nothing left because they didn't rotate their crops.
Yeah.
So that's why, just buying from a farm that's educated, right? They want to, and really it's their own downfall at the end of the day. So I don't even see why it would make sense. You'd have to continuously buy property and continuously fertilize and nutrient it instead of just rotating your crops and taking that time and doing it. So a lot of farmers in the courses that I had to take, most of them now do rotate their crops, but there are still those big, heavy companies that they're just burning off the land, buying more land. Okay, we'll plant some trees or something, or, that'll just be some sawdust area, or, we'll use it for dumping land, or we'll build a building there, whatever their plan is. And that's just not sustainable. And now certain states are implementing certain laws, where they're forced, you have to rotate your, you're not allowed to. You're ruining our land. You're ruining our air, really. I mean, you're killing off giant sectors that could be growing things, getting more oxygen in the air, and instead it's just dry, sanded area that isn't doing much.
Yeah, and if you're taking over new land to start over, you're knocking down trees and other things that are good for the environment.
Different ecosystems and environments that you didn't give them more land to go live on. So not only did you take away, you didn't replenish anything. So we all know you can't just take.
Yeah.
We know that. So at some point, I'm assuming, would hope it's going to be a national law, but at some point they're going to have to infiltrate, like, you can't do this. Like, it's not sustainable, especially with all the housing going up. They're already knocking down enough. What are you going to do when we need farmland and housing, So, I mean, it's all in a plan. I know they do have plans and implemented. I had to learn about while in school. They're in the makings, but it's a global plan. They all have to be on plan. I know China had to do it with their, I don't remember the river, but they just built that huge dam to help with energy so that they weren't, they had to find a new way, right, to get energy because they were using, and they were having blackouts, all this stuff. They needed a healthier, more sustainable way. So they built that massive dam.
And turn it into a hydropower plant.
It is massive. If you look at it, it's huge. And I think they just finished it. It might even still be being tweaked a little bit. But when I was in school, they were in the works of it and such. But yeah, just there's this giant global plan, but by a certain time, you have to be on board or everyone's going to die. It's a whole thing. You can't just change one country. Everyone's in tune with it.
Yeah. And, to your point, when it comes to land is finite. There's not more land you can just make.
No.
At some point, we're going to run out of space.
And, we're going to have to start building the pillars like they did in the empires and stuff, the floating cities and things like that, because you have to take care of your land and you have to look at the things under the land, the aquifers and stuff. If you look at Florida, their freshwater aquifers and their saltwater are starting to contaminate each other.
That's not good.
Yeah, and they have to build these underground walls now because it's just collapsing because of everything that's happening. And I feel like if these builders and everyone really took into consideration where they were building and had more of a strategic plan, then this is where we're going to make the most money. And, this is where they're going to have the best driving. Well, that's great, but how long are we going to sustain that?
Yeah.
Is there enough oxygen? Is there enough this? Is there enough food for that area? Everything like that should be taken into consideration because you're destroying an ecosystem to build what you believe is a better ecosystem.
And how many animals are you killing and disrupting in the process?
Exactly. So all those lives matter, right? We found out the hard way how important a bee is, like a butterfly, a caterpillar, these little things that people are like, we need to squash them and get rid of them. They're really contributing to a bigger picture that we can't even see. We can't even comprehend what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, even snakes for that matter. A lot of people don't like snakes, but They take care of the rodents.
Yep. And they're keeping all those other little things that we jump and screech at away from us. Mm-hmm. So we should really be saying, nod our head to them, like, thank you for being my protector. Snakes are seen as protectors in a lot of countries and cultures and different places. They're the protector, the one that kind of sees all and is sly with it, though, right? They're the hidden protector almost. Mm-hmm. So I see a snake as like, thanks for being there. Yeah. Being there when I couldn't see it, or getting that mouse or however you got stuck in that weird trap in my garage. I don't know how you got in there, but you were getting something, because or else, it wouldn't have happened. Yeah. So I just take everything kind of with a grain of salt and go, thanks. Or, how'd you get in here, buddy? And just really help them out to get back into their little environment instead of freaking out or doing whatever. We don't freak out over the bees either. We have tons of bees around my house. There are flowers everywhere. I'm sure you see my gardens. Mm-hmm. And when you walk in my house, there's a swarm of bees around your head and everyone's swatting and we just walk through it. And everyone goes, how do you just walk through it?
Well, they don't bother you if you don't bother them.
Yeah, they're just doing their job. Who am I? I built my house on their land. Please pollinate,
Yeah, seriously.
So I just tell everyone, no, just walk through it. They don't come in the house. They stop at the door. As long as you're in tune with it, you're in tune with them because they're part of the frequency. They don't talk. Their talk is a thought process, right? So that's kind of like meditation. It's a thought process. So if you're all meditating in a room, you're not talking out loud, you're just thinking it. And it's occurring. So it's the same thing that's happening with like animals and such. They're in a frequency and they're communicating through that frequency. Yeah. So they already know they're not supposed to be in the house. But the minute I think, don't come in the house, guess what I just put out there?
Yeah.
Invite.
Yeah.
Come on in. Let's go, bees. Come in the house. So just acknowledging that your thought has that much power and just staying, again, cool, calm, and collective, right? Hey, just walk through them. Oh, hi, guys. Have a great day, bees. And just going on with your merry day. They won't even ping off your body. They'll almost hover around your body. They won't even go into your aura. They'll like be on the outside of you. It's like, oh, okay, this is weird.
And you're absolutely right. And to think back to when I was a kid, my mindset was different when it came to like bees and other bugs and flies. When I was a kid, if I saw one, my first thought is, it's going to hit me, it's going to run into me, or something's going to happen. And to your point, I brought that upon myself.
Yep. And they did hit you, and they did probably swarm you.
Absolutely. I was at my grandmother's house this past week, and she has all those carpenter bees just flying everywhere. There's probably 40 or 50 of them just floating around the outside of the house, and not a single one hit me.
Yep.
I wasn't worried about it.
Yep, exactly.
Just let them be, so to speak, some pun intended.
Yeah. See, and that's what we tell our kids. Like, they wanted to sleep on the trampoline the other day. They're like, there's so many mosquitoes and gnats. And I said, I just mowed the lawn until 9:10 p.m. I don't have anything on me.
Yeah.
So the difference is putting and focusing your energy towards it versus just putting your energy towards making your bed on the trampoline or playing with the ball. I'm just playing basketball versus, oh my gosh, I just realized there's bugs all around me.
Yeah.
Well, now they're in your mouth. Now they're in your ears. Now they're doing all the,
shirt.
Now they're, oh my God, now you're kicking and screaming and flaring your arms all over. But before, for an hour, you were probably playing out there next to the spiders and next to the bees and next to the June bug. And they didn't bother you at all. They were probably flying above your head and doing their own thing until you attracted them, until you acknowledged them into your own circle. Now you're friends.
What's crazy to me is how many people get bit by spiders all the time or stung by wasps every year, and it's because they're worried about it. Mm-hmm. It's not something I think about, and it's not something that's ever happened to me.
Yep.
But you put that thought out there, the universe is going to return it.
Exactly.
To your point, it is an invitation.
Yeah. And that's why they say your worst things that occur to you is your greatest fear. Because the only reason it occurred is because you thought about it so much, because you were so scared of it, that it occurred. Because you were manifesting it. Because that's where your energy or your thought was put towards. So I also have not been stung by anything since I was 8.
Yeah.
Because I said, I don't ever want that to happen again. That's my manifest. Nope, not today. I ain't going to be the one that gets stung by that bee. Exactly. My sister would get attacked. I have 2 funny stories about this too. My sister and my dad unraveled an old sleeping bag that was in a shed or something, and it had a huge hive in it, right? Unraveled it. The amount of stings could not be counted on either hand, probably. Like, it was obscene. Like, the biggest nest I've probably ever seen in my life. Just bees everywhere. It looked like a movie.
Wow.
I was like, whoa, that's crazy. You know, being a little kid, I was like, wow, that's wild. I didn't get stung, right? They just kind of floated with them, and it was like a movie. The little kid with the bees running around, you know, and they're like, ah, and there's like bees all around them. Me and my brother slept on our deck. You remember those little like $20 or $10 little plastic tents with the little sticks you could stick, and you could like, it was like the size of a small little doghouse maybe.
Yeah.
And little kids could play in them. You could get a princess one or like a dog one, like that had Paw Patrol or something on it.
Almost like a Native American one, little pop-up
Yeah,
ones.
like, but it was like plastic, and it had like the little plastic poles you would connect. So we had a little one, and we're like, we should sleep on the deck and put like blankets out and just have a nice cool summer night, you know, camp out thing on the deck. Great. You know, we're in the middle of the night. I was like, oh, kind of swatting some stuff away, whatever. Wake up the next morning, and there was like bees all over the top of my little tent. And I was like, what the heck? You know, my little kid self kind of comes out of there and goes, what is going on? I thought I was swatting at like mosquitoes all night.
Oh.
We were sleeping over a wasp nest
That
the
was
entire
under the deck?
the entire night. It was underneath the deck, and it was right underneath both of our little tents.
Wow.
So both of our tents had, you know, as we were moving, we were irritating them. Yeah. And we thought we were hitting mosquitoes because it was dark.
And you just hear... bzz, bzz.
Yeah. And we're just like, oh, you know, we're little kids. We were ignoring it, right? And that, again, we didn't know that that's what they were, or we probably would have got stung. But we thought in our little kid mind, we were just swatting mosquitoes, so we did not get stung. And we were hitting them with our hands. Like, we were physically touching them.
Yeah.
And we thought they were mosquitoes. We did not get stung at all. We didn't even know they were wasps till the morning.
Yeah, and there's people that get stung just by being in the area.
Yep.
You were actually doing something that would aggravate
I was touching them. Yeah, I should have gotten stung, and I did not.
But the fear wasn't there.
No, because I didn't have any. And then our new house we moved into, we went on a family walk, and my husband and kids watched this occur. Craziest, again, adult moment having it happen. We were walking. There's trees down our cute little thing by our house, a little walkway up. And we're walking by the trees, and I was like, oh, that's a nice tree. Oh, look at this creep tree. You know, acknowledging the weird faces on the trees. I don't know if you guys have trees like that by your house, but ours have like, it look like eyes and a mouth sometimes, you know, with the knots in the trees.
I mainly do that with cars, but trees and mountains and other structures too.
Yep. Yeah. I'm just like, oh, you know, this has, you know, a face and this has a that. And I'm walking and I just freeze, right? I'm just like a stick figure. And I'm walking and I'm like, honey. And I kind of slowly turn to him and he's like laughing. And I go, there's a swarm of bees around my body. I could physically feel it walking with my body.
Like they were just following you everywhere you went.
I was standing under a massive 1.5 foot, like huge,
oh my God,
hanging off. I was standing under it and walking, and all the bees, again, like in the movies, were following me, but they were bouncing off my aura, literally. My husband was watching it. He was like, you looked like one of those weird beekeepers that you're just like friends with the bees and walking through the woods with like Snow White talking to all that. I was like, oh my gosh. And I just ignored them and I ducked my head out like this and they went away. Literally, I ducked and moved. I wasn't scared. I was just like, get away from me type thing. You know, like, why are you following me? And the bees went away. Again, I wasn't scared at all because I haven't been, for one, stung since I was 8, so I don't remember what it feels like, honestly. And 2, you know, I just was more amazed that they weren't stinging me at that point.
So do you think part of your aura is what kind of projects out your thoughts through the energy?
Well, I believe my aura is more of my energetic field that's radiating off of me, and then I'm able to project whatever part of who I am I want to at that point.
So you can kind of push that through your aura. So at that point, it was a shield.
It really was, because I was at peace, right? Versus disrupting the aura is what I kind of think of it as. When I put a fear or a negative or lower frequency through it, you're disrupting it, right? Think of it as like rumbling it versus keeping it cool, calm, and collective. You're just shifting with it is what I think of. You're flowing versus fighting.
Yeah.
You don't ever want to fight yourself, right? Because who's winning?
Yeah.
You know, like, so if you just go with the flow of your own body instead, you don't really have to think of projecting or pushing anything through because you're working with the frequency of whatever's occurring around you.
So there's no resistance.
Yes, exactly. You're just, okay, perfect, and we're going, right? Think of it as, have you ever seen the movie Soul yet?
I have not.
Oh, you should. It's a good one. But for those who have seen it, the people up in the soul land, they're all their names are Jerry.
Jerry?
All Jerry. Hi, Jerry. Good day, Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Okay, come on, souls. They're all neutral. So when I'm coaching or even at work or in real life, I think of everything as a neutral zone. Don't go too high. Don't go too low. Stay with the flow. So whatever you're in, try to stick with that. Because if you're going too up and above, it's too much. It's disruptive still. And you see that with dogs and animals in a house, right? Everything's cool and calm and everyone's associating, and then that one kid comes running through. Or the crazy cat flies through the dogs that are sleeping, and then the one jumps up, right? And then starts chasing the cat, and happens in my house all the time. It's disrupting because it's too high or it's too low.
Yeah.
It's offsetting that frequency of whatever the room or the environment you're in. So you have to work with the frequency versus working against it, because you're never going to win when you're working against it. You cannot. It's just silly. You know, that's like working against an electromagnetic field. I mean, what do you...
There's not a whole lot you can do there.
No, you're in it. It's part of it.
So it just kind of goes back to like the old phrase, go with the flow.
Yep. And it's legit. Like, it's not just like, go with the flow, Joe. Like, it's a real thing to acknowledge and know where you're at in your own emotional intelligence at that point. You know, am I emotionally intelligent enough to know that I'm being extra right now?
Yeah.
Am I emotionally intelligent enough to know that I'm kind of being a Debbie Downer? You should be, as an adult, be able to tell if you're being the sad one in the room, or you're being the extra one in the room, or you're, being that person. And that's great to be once in a while. Of course, we want to be seen. But staying in the flow, you're going to be acknowledged more. And if more people knew that, they would know that their words are going to be heard more in the flow too,
And to that point too, there's people I think that are really in control of their life and their energy. And, another phrase that you hear is somebody walks in and lights up the room or commands the room. There are people that simply walk into the room and they do change the whole feel of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And that's probably just them being very positive and just confident, and that projects through their aura.
Because if you look at frequencies, right, they say the highest frequency is unconditional love. And right under that, which is real close-knit to it, some say it's higher sometimes. I don't know. Do your own frequency test, I guess. I don't got one of those. But, I've seen different things. Authenticity and unconditional love are the highest. But I believe it may be the same, because being your true authentic self, you have to have unconditional love for yourself.
Yeah.
So to be yourself, you have to unconditionally love yourself to be your authentic self. So I think that's where that frequency is right in line with that. So that's where my brain goes to. It makes sense to me. To be your authentic self, you can't be fake. You have to be you. So, if you're always carrying that positive higher frequency, that is always that one frequency is gonna. You need 5 to 6 positives to offset one negative. So think of that.
That's a big offset.
Yes. So think of 30 people in the room, and you're the only positive one that walks in. You're gonna influence one person at a time.
It sounds like a workplace.
So you're gonna first connect with one person, right? And you're gonna have that real good connection, and then that connection they have a few more connections, and they're going to see their aura change, and they're going to ask where they got that from. And then boom, you're going to start laughing and giggling, and that one laugh is going to make someone else laugh, and that one giggle is going to make someone else giggle, or that one just smile, right? Some people say your smile just lights up the room. Well, if you walk in a room, a lot of people are real serious. A lot of people are serious about life, and to walk into a room and have that lighter, flowy frequency of just pure happiness isn't seen of often anymore. We see more of the oh, let me comfort you, and oh, what's going on? Oh, tell me your problem, pretty much. Instead of, oh, that's your problem, let's find a solution. You know, where's the positive of this? We're just talking about problems all day. What's the best of this? So just smiling is a huge authentic frequency. You know, most people don't just smile to smile. It's usually a real smile. You know, I don't go around smiling in a room. I'm like usually happy.
It has a very calming effect too. I've noticed, you know, if you approach a situation from a point of kindness and happiness, it does change the mood in other people too. You know, working in customer service so many years, I have to deal with upset people, whether it's team members or customers. And, you know, if I'm called to a situation where I know something negative is happening, if I approach it from a negative aspect, knowing that it's not a situation I want to be in or I'm going to enjoy, then I'm just adding to it. Now, if I walk up, you know, with a smile on my face, hey, how are you? What can I do for you? How can I help you? You know, and the biggest thing is a smile and the energy that I emit. I've noticed that has a more profound impact on the experience, and I usually get a little bit more of that back.
Yep. Instead of getting, because again, you get what you give usually, right? Unless they're so far depressed or sad or unhappy with themselves, they just can't find that inch of happiness, but most people can, right? And in a lot of managerial courses and at my bachelor's in science of psychology, you learn a lot of managerial and psychological things as to why you do it, and they connect it to science, which is, again, why I took science of psychology. Ties back to my health and my life. It makes sense when people know my life, why I took it, but some people are like, why did you take it? I'm like, a lot of reasons, but just really offsetting a lot of things. You are your greatest frequency, really, at the end of the day. And you have the ability to change an entire environment or a situation just by your reaction or not reaction.
Yeah, and you know, one thing you mentioned a little bit ago I want to touch back on. You said that love is considered the highest frequency?
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love. And that may be applied to when somebody you care about's maybe in danger. So one thing that I remember my mom telling me as a kid, I don't know if this is a myth or just something that, you know, goes around, but that in certain situations, let's say like a loved one is trapped under a car, that person can acquire some kind of superhuman strength. That there's been supposedly documented situations where somebody can lift a car enough to get you out.
Yeah.
And I mean, if unconditional love is the highest frequency, maybe that can have an impact on your physical body, at least on a temporary state.
Yeah. And actually going to that, me and my husband talk about it all the time. We have this thing at our table. We have like an open talk table. So this is pretty much my house all day. It's like talking like this. It's really funny. But we're always like an open concept household. But we believe, right, and based off what we've experienced, what we've read, what we learned, what we've heard from scientists, what we see science versus reality, you know, I always connect energy to science. That's why I did study the science of psychology, because I wanted to know both aspects of it so I could connect real world, right? Because you don't only usually see one side of it, you see both sides. So I believe that, yeah, we get this super inner strength. I believe we all already have it, right? We all harness it, right? We talked about energy. You can't destroy energy, but you can harness it, right? You can, we've all seen like Dragon Ball Z, right? You know, all this stuff, right? Yeah. And like, as far-fetched as it feels, I remember being a kid, and I actually have two people so far I've brought this up to that said they did the same thing. So now I'm curious. As a kid, to comfort myself, I would create a little ball. And I could feel that ball. and I would play with that little ball with my fingers. And when I closed my eyes when I was crying and I put my head in that pillow, I saw a light. And as I started talking about this childhood story, more kids and adults remembered doing that same exact thing, including my best friend's daughter who lives with me.
Wow.
She says, I can feel the ball. Well, that's energy, honey. You're harnessing, right? You're harnessing it into a ball. You're harnessing it into a ball. You're harnessing it into a bigger ball. But as you do it, you really can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to tune into that part of your body, though. So I feel like we all know how to do it already, because a lot of us clearly did it when we were kids, too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a natural, innate thing that is already part of us that we just kind of shut off as we get into the 3D world, I believe.
Yeah.
And our motherly intuition, which is always with a mother, because we're a mother, right? A man and a woman are built very different. If you haven't studied that yet, you should. But you need both to create. That's why they say man and woman bloom, because different parts of the brain are activated in a man versus a woman. You think different. You have different traits that a woman inherently has. So,
well, it's like a battery, positive and a negative. Mm-hmm. Two positives don't work, two negatives don't work. But with the positive and negative, you come together and
yes.
There's a cycle.
So I believe that we all harness this energy already. We just forgot it. And as we get older, we kind of get out of tune with it based on our environment, right? If you grew up in a really spiritually in tune environment, you probably still were aware of this, though. Mm-hmm. But a lot of us didn't, right? So as we got older, we didn't really know this. If you do karate, tai chi, anything like that, you know about harnessing energy. You know how to shut off certain parts of your body. And you know it's capable of doing that, right? Your mind can tell your body what to do at any point. It's if you believe. That is the big key thing, is if you inherently believe your body can do that. Mm-hmm. And when you're trying to save somebody, guess what you believe?
Yeah, you believe you can do it.
You very much believe you're doing it, and you're doing it. And you're not thinking, oh, I'm doing it. You're just doing it. Mm-hmm. So go to Nike, just do it.
Yeah.
There you go. So when you start connecting everything, the goal is to just do it.
Yep.
Don't think, don't ponder. It just should naturally come, and that's when you know you're doing the right thing. And that's when you know it's happening, is because you didn't have to think and ponder upon it. Your body naturally, innately just did it. Mm-hmm. It just said, this is what my body is naturally supposed to do, just like in a happy environment when we just start talking and collaborating and being in flow, you just naturally do it. So it all ends up tying together to just listen to your body and do what you're supposed to do. Because if you are, then you are believing in yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think even in those situations of non-believers, in that split second, you know, your body goes into flight mode and your body just takes charge and knows it can. And you do those things without thinking about it. Because those non-believers, when you think about it, that's when your body shuts down and you can't.
Yep. You start second guessing yourself. Mm-hmm. There's a new movie out. I don't remember what the name of it is. I feel like you probably would have seen it too. Like at the end of it, so this like manifested negative energy, these people live in the house and it ends up connecting to all of her kids, and she gets them taken away by child services, but it ends up being this negative thing that manifests through her, and she goes to like Jesus to believe, to start pulling it out of her kids and her family. She was her last savior. So again, manifesting that power in herself to save her family. She was her last choice, or all her kids were going to die from this thing, making them scratch their skin apart and all this crazy stuff.
Wow.
Right? So the mom was shown that fear, not believing in thyself, fearing that you don't have the power. You're not worth it. That's the only downfall that is keeping everybody back, is just the fear of what if, the fear of not believing, the fear of not believing in the self, the choice the self's making, right? We're questioning it instead of just doing it and believing that is what we're supposed to do. We see judgment, right? We have self-judgment, other people's judgment, all this stuff. But if we were just to calm the body and just do that next best thing and not care what the repercussion really was, because we just did it because our heart said it was the best next thing, right? I created this podcast because it's the best next thing. I created my grounding with Sunshine LLC because it's the best next thing. I don't know what it might entail in the next 5 to 10 years, but I know it's the thing that I was supposed to do next because it worked and I feel no resistance and it feels right.
Exactly.
You know, and I don't need a better reason than that. You know, that's what I feel like I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to do it.
And that's the difference between somebody that pushes past the resistance and gets things done and the people that always start something and fail something. Is because, one, they don't truly believe in themselves.
And all of us have that, right? It's a lot of our childhood stuff that comes up. And we just have to refine us, right? We just have to believe in ourselves a little bit more. And once you find that spark, though, it's really hard to go backwards because you're like, nothing's going to shoot this down, you know?
Yeah, you don't want to get back to that place.
No, because you remember how scary it was. And you're like, well, if I know fear fed me to there, what can positivity feed me to?
Correct.
You know, what can the opposite of that fear do for me? If I know fear led me down this terrifying rabbit hole of death, doom, and despair, literally, what can doing the right thing do?
Yeah.
You know, what can doing the next positive thing do? That's my goal. That's my next goal, is what can the next best thing do for my world?
And I think the same stands true to people that get stuck in bad relationships. They stay at a job they don't like too long. You know, it's that fear of doing something different and being worried that you're going to fail. And a lot of people fall into that trap of, well, I'm comfortable here. And that fear holds them back from doing something way better that they could be doing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because, again, you get, when they say, when you get comfortable, that's when you need to move. That's when you need change, because you need to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, because that is where your growth's always going to stand, is in the unknown. You didn't do it yet, or you would already be that millionaire or that goal of whatever you wanted to be, right? That $500,000, whatever your life goal is, you would have already been there.
Yeah, you got to pivot.
Yeah, so at one point you have to shift something because obviously you didn't get there yet.
Yeah.
So to stay in that locked mindset of whatever it is at that time is silly. You have to go past that and get scared for a moment, you know?
Yeah, I don't think anybody that's highly successful did it by flying on autopilot.
No. Or being handed to, like, on a silver platter. It didn't happen like that, for sure.